Hello again. You see my blender here. You're probably thinking, oh my god, no, it's a frozen drink. You're probably going to put a little umbrella or something in it, aren't you? No, that's not what I'm going to do. This is actually to do some crushed ice, and I'll explain that in a little bit. The last video where I showed you how to do a cocktail, I showed you how to do a margarita. We did it straight up, no ice in the glass. And somewhere in the comments, I don't really remember why, and I didn't go back and read, I said maybe next time I show you how to do a mojito. And that's what I'm going to do today. And the reason I have the blender here is not because it's a blended drink, but because I want to use this to crush some ice. There's a couple reasons I want to do that. There's different ways you can crush the ice, and I've tried it both ways here. And the first way doesn't work very well with the ice I have here because the ice is just simply way too hard. And that method is to take one of your shaker tins, put the ice in it, and you take your muddler and you just crush the ice. You cover it like that and just crush the ice. The problem with that, doing it that way here, is the ice that comes out of my ice maker is so darn hard that by the time you get it broken up in any way, you also compact it down and it gets stuck in the bottom of this tin, which doesn't make a very good method for doing it in a video. So I'm going to crush the ice in the blender, which is a lot easier to work with. It'll be a lot better presentation for video purposes. And frankly, it'll just be a better consistency for the cocktail. To get started, the first thing I'm going to do is we're going to squeeze some lime juice. Now, this is something I screwed up with the camera when I tried to do this with the margarita, and I ended up not getting the actual squeezing of the lime because I did not realize it. My brand new camera wasn't turned on. So I'm going to try this again, and this time you'll be able to see the wonderful action of squeezing the lime juice, which is not real exciting, but at least you're going to see how it's done. Again, I think I did in the last video take the lime and just roll it a little bit, and again that just starts those juices flowing. We're going to split that, cut it right in half. Helps to have a good sharp knife so you don't have to really saw it and then you're crushing all the juice out as you're trying to cut. Now, the way I squeeze this is with a citrus squeezer. This is made, it works well with lemons halves or lime halves. And just simply take the lime, place it upside down in the squeezer, and the juice is going to come out the bottom. I've seen this done in some bartending demonstration videos on YouTube where the bartender actually squeezes a perfect 1 ounce of lime juice into their jigger. Now that's not going to work here because my citrus squeezer has holes all the way around that are almost the same size as the top of this, and I absolutely guarantee you, I had not tried this, but I absolutely guarantee you I would have lime juice all over this counter if I tried to do it that way, so that's not how I'm going to do it. I'm going to instead, to try to keep it a little cleaner, squeeze it into this glass. And it's simple, just take and squeeze. And like I said, we're probably going to get a little more than 1 ounce of lime juice out of this lime. And I know that simply because I've had a few of these limes here of this particular size now, and I know that they're pretty good limes. They have a lot of juice, and I'm getting just a little bit more than 1 ounce out of each one. Now that I've got my lime juice squeezed, I'm going to get some other preparation done, and I'm going to start preparing the mint that's going to go into this drink, because the main ingredients for this drink are lime juice, mint, and rum. So the first thing I'm going to do with the mint is I'm going to take a piece that I want to use as a garnish, which is usually going to be the top of the mint stem, because it gives you the best looking leaves, and that's going to be the best garnish. Next step is I'm going to get about 12 or so of these leaves. Now it depends on the mint you're able to get a hold of, how big the leaves are as to how many of them you should use. In some cases 12 might be too much. In this case that's probably going to be just about right. So I'm going to gather about 12 of the bigger leaves and get those set aside. The reason that I'm doing it in this order is because I want the ice to not melt very much from the time that I get it crushed in the blender until I'm ready to put it in the drink. So I'm doing some of these things as kind of a preparation before I actually do the ice step. One other thing about taking this mint off of the stems is I'm trying to pinch it with my thumbnail and just sort of cut it almost off of there instead of rip it, because I really don't want to rip those leaves up just yet. There will be a little bit here in a minute or two where they're going to get ripped and crushed a little, but that's okay later on. I just don't really want to do it right now. I want to keep them a little more fresh until I'm ready for that step. Okay, my next step is going to be to put a little bit of sugar in with the lime juice. And I'm going to use about 2 teaspoons of sugar. And this is actually a bar spoon, but it's about the right size. So about 2 teaspoons of sugar, and I'm using, it's all organic. It's not as highly processed sugar. So this may look like it's kind of brown sugar, but it's not. It's just not as highly processed, so it's not the white color that you're used to seeing. And I'm going to do just a quick stir. I want to try to dissolve that sugar into the lime juice. There are other things you can do. Of course, you can use white sugar. That's not a problem. Most often, that's what you're going to see people use. I just happen to like the less refined sugar. It's possibly a bit healthier, and so that's why I have it. So that's stirred well enough, and pretty much just need to go until almost all of the granules are completely dissolved. It doesn't have to be perfect because there's going to be a little bit more stirring that's going to go on before we're totally done with this cocktail. Okay, so now that most of the preparation steps are done, and I'm going to go ahead and do the ice. And again, the reason I'm doing it in this order is to try to keep my ice as cold as possible and to get as little melting as possible, so we're not watering this down when we start to put it together. And I'm just going to take some ice, which I took out of the freezer already, and I put it in the blender. Now if you already have ice, it's smaller, it's easy to crush. You can crush it a different way. If you already have crushed ice, it's fine. I just don't happen to have crushed ice, and like I mentioned before, this ice is so hard, if I tried to crush it in any other way, I'm just going to be sitting here for 10 minutes trying to do it and end up just compacting it down to the bottom of something. Sort of pulsing this so that the bigger chunks keep going down to the bottom. Pretty well broken up. So I have to stop for a second, and I'm pushing some of those bigger pieces down. And I'm just going to pulse it a couple more times to try to get most of those bigger chunks. And that's pretty good. It doesn't have to be really fine. We're not trying to make a smoothie here. We're just crushing ice. So that step's ready to go. I'm going to now start putting this together. And I'm going to take my lime juice. And again, I know that's just a little bit more than 1 ounce, so I'm going to change the ratio slightly on my rum. And I'm going to take a small amount of this ice that I just crushed, and I'm going to put it into the bottom of the glass. That's about enough for this step. There's going to be more that's going to go in, but this is all we need for now. Now I'm going to take the mint leaves that I got selected before, and I'm just going to break those quick. That's going to release a lot of the oils from the mint leaves, and it's going to help flavor this drink. But before I put them in, I'm just going to put it around the rim of the glass. It's going to get some of that mint smell right up on the glass there. When you get ready to drink, you'll smell that mint, and that kind of helps present the drink a little bit. And I'm just going to take that and just sort of mix it in. I'm not really muddling this, muddling meaning to kind of crush and blend. I'm just sort of mixing it. I don't really want to muddle it. It does, you know, there's different schools of thought on that. You'll see some people muddle the ingredients. This particular method doesn't do that. We're just sort of mixing. So that step I just completed there is what I mentioned before. We're going to do a little bit more mixing, and that should have mixed up the rest of that sugar, and it should now be pretty well incorporated into the drink. And at this point, I'm going to take and do just a little over 2 ounces of rum. Now, the recipe that I work off of says 2 ounces of rum, but again, I know there's just a little bit more than 1 ounce of lime juice in there, so I'm going to try to adjust a little bit to keep this ratio about the same as what the recipe would normally call for. So just about, that's 2 ounces right there, and I'm going to go just a little over that. And that should keep my ratio similar to what what I would have if I would have had exactly 1 ounce of lime juice. So the next step is to go ahead and add a lot more of the crushed ice. I'm trying to get more of it to go into the glass than what's going onto the counter is actually not a bad idea. In fact, that would be preferred. See, I'm having a little bit of a challenge with that. Nobody said this was going to be completely neat. Okay, just about got enough of it in there. And what we're going for here is to get this glass almost totally full, but not completely. And I'll show you why in just a second. Okay, so I've got my glass almost completely full with the ice, but there's a little room left in there, and that's going to be fine. The last step before I garnish this is going to be to add just a little bit of soda water. And that's why you don't want this completely full of ice. You want a little room for the soda water, but you really don't want very much of this because you really don't want to water down the spirits and the lime juice. So it's just a splash. It gives it just a bit of effervescence into that drink, a little bit of carbonation. So with the soda water added, I'm going to take this mint that I saved before. I'm just going to quick slap it. That releases some of those oils and brings some of that fragrance out so that that mint smell is going to be right at your nose when you get ready to drink. I'm going to add a straw, and that's pretty much all there is to it. So there you have it. That's the Mojito. It's one way of doing it. If you look around, if you're interested in knowing different ways to do it, you can find that there's different videos out there, some by professional bartenders, some by other people that show you different methods of doing this, which are also fine. I think it kind of depends on the region you're in as to how it may be prepared. You may see it done differently in different restaurants. This is not exactly the way I had it mixed the first time I got it at a bar or a restaurant, but it's fairly close. There's other ways of doing it too. There's mixers out there. If I do very many of these demonstrations, you're going to find out that I'm not much of a fan of mixers. I like to learn how to do this with the actual ingredients rather than using a mixer. That doesn't necessarily mean that this is the right way and that's a wrong way. It's just different ways of doing it. Again, we're doing this at home. Do it the way you want to do it the way that it works best for you. One other thing I want to talk about is I am just using regular Bacardi rum. This is not spiced rum. There are spiced rums that you can do in this, and if you use the darker colored spiced rums like some of the Captain Morgans, that sometimes is called a dirty mojito. This is the more traditional way to do it with just plain clear rum. If you want to use a spiced rum that's not dark, there is a Captain Morgan that is spiced and not dark. I can't vouch for how that tastes because the only way I've ever had it made is with a clear rum, not necessarily Bacardi, but a clear rum. Again, matter of taste. Do what you want to do with it, have some fun, try different ways, see which way you like it best, and just enjoy. So until next time, when I may or may not be making more alcoholic drinks, everybody have a good day, and I hope everybody's doing well. Cheers. So the last video I showed you how to make the last video where I made a cocktail, I showed you how to do a margarita, and I showed you how to do it straight up without I got something stuck on the floor there. Remember in the comments, somebody, damn. So to start with, what I'm going to do, and this is something I didn't get with the margarita, so it's kind of a chance at redemption here, is squeeze some lemon juice. Typically, the ratio, most recipes calls for about 1 ounce of lemon juice. I'll probably get just a little bit more than that out of the lemon. Okay, so to get started, first thing I'm going to do is we're going to squeeze some lime juice. Different schools of thought on that. You'll see some people muddle the ingredients. This particular method doesn't do that. We're just sort of mixing. So we got the, and that's where, now that step there is where I mentioned before, it'll melt some